And welcome everybody back to what has become something of a tradition on the Australian Jumping Network, and that is to talk to the people, the athletes, in fact, that have been listed on our Australian show jumping squad. And in fact, I'm looking at a young lady now, all the way over in Holland, in Valkenswaard. Welcome to getting to know Hilary Scott. Hilary, what a great achievement. You've been named on the Olympic squad to head into Paris.
Thank you very much for having me, Martin. And yeah, it's an absolute honour, and I'm very, very excited to head to Paris in a few weeks with our other female team members. Yeah, it's very exciting.
All ladies, three ladies, which is a marvelous feat in itself. And yeah, look, we often talk about equestrian being that sport where the men and the ladies compete together on equal terms. And that's certainly with our three ladies going into Paris is something to look out for. I'm very excited for all of you. Hills, we've known each other a while, and I've watched with absolute admiration the progress you've made from junior and young rider squads and accomplishments both here and overseas. But I just wanted to dwell 2 seconds on way back when it was the beginnings of your life on the land with mum and dad, very much a farming background in that Moree area. And I'm curious to know your opinion on the fact that talking to Georgia, your sister, on dusty paddocks out west of New South Wales, there was a lot of time mustering cattle. There was a lot of time on horseback, many hours, in fact, day to day, horses being very much used on the farm. And then there was Pony Club at Moree and doing multidisciplines. You would do your show jumping, yes, but also the camp drafting. And I guess just all those wonderful things that young Australians enjoy at Pony Club, a mixture of dressage, a mixture of just camaraderie, but multidisciplined and being the use of a horse for work. Do you feel now at the tender age of 36 being picked for the Olympic Games, that background on farm did in fact help you get that natural, if you will, feel for a horse? And do you look back fondly on those days on horseback, in Moree?
Yeah, by all means. I have the fondest memories growing up. It always involves a horse in my vivid memories of growing up in Moree and on the farm. And like you said, with family and friends, and we had a lot of family and friends who were also competing at Moree Pony Club, or whose properties that we were also going to help them muster their cattle or sheep. And yeah, it was just a real part of our community and part of day-to-day life, and the horses in general were part of our day-to-day life. And I think from as long as I can remember, it was just being around the horses. And I think being around them for so long, yeah, they just become part of you. And yeah, I definitely think it's had a huge impact as to why I'm still having a lot to do with them. And I think, as they say, once they're in your blood, it's hard to get rid of them. So that's
Yeah.
definitely been the case for me anyway.
Well, it's fascinating to me on a few levels, and I'll explain myself. We're here to talk about Olympics, but just I think this is relevant that in this day and age of a lot of metro-based riders, you're now Valkenswaard in Holland on the Dutch-Belgian border, arguably the center of the universe for show jumping. Jan and Edwina are up the road and the wonderful facility that they have, but many other top flight equestrians in that area. And where I'm going with this, I'm wondering, because you were so very much had an affinity with horses from an early age, you look today's show jumpers, and a lot of them I feel miss out on that interaction between horse and rider, to the point maybe in the modern era that the international groom almost fills that role as one rider jumps from one horse to another. But you yourself and your family and Georgia and others, I just wonder to myself, do you still feel that it's absolutely vital that you have that rider horse connection, almost two hearts together, as opposed to, and don't get me wrong, I know the industry goes this way where you jump off one horse, but it becomes almost the groom is filling in that medium role between horse and rider to get that absolute affinity. Do you think I'm going too far left field, or is the point valid?
I think depending on the level and and what your goals and outcomes are in the sport, because definitely at the highest level, I watch all the other professionals and they're all riding their horses a lot. They have a lot of connection with all their horses, no matter where they've sort of come from, whether they've bought their horses, whether they've produced their horses, whether they have a big stable where they also have other riders. But when they're on that top level, there is no doubt that they're all spending plenty of time with their horses. And but of course, as you say, the grooms play a vital role and they know the horses inside out as well. But I think at the highest level, especially at 5-star level, you have to know your horse well. And I've witnessed that with all the riders that I'm competing against and with. They all know their horses very well, and they're all such astute riders at that level that they know that you have to feel and know your horse at that point. There is definitely a part of the industry that is, as you say, sort of step on, step off. And then the groom, of course, does play a huge role, and that is sort of, they become then sort of the horse's person. But at the end of the day, you still have to be the one that rides that horse in the ring and gets the most out of it. And I think results and what you see in the ring shows what sort of situation is behind the scenes, if that makes sense.
Well, it does. Yeah, it makes complete sense. And yeah, I've heard from a lot of people from overseas, it's a bit more like the step on, step off. But listen to what you're saying, and you're living that scene. Perhaps not, but those top riders aren't there in that step off, step on regime at all. They really understand the value of the connection.
Some of them that are riding so many horses, they're stepping on, stepping off. But the ones at the top level, every day they're in the barn working and riding their horses, and if they're on the show every week, it's because they're riding a different team every week. So I can vouch for definitely the highest level, but I also completely understand what you're saying about there's a whole nother market that is catered for people who just arrive, hop on the horse and then leave. And a lot of those are people who, they don't do it as their full-time job, they do it as a hobby. They can afford to pay people to make sure that the horses are, just there ready when they need them. And going back to sort of, I think, your initial question, for me, I am very grateful and very happy that I got the background of the horses and have done it in that way, as opposed to just arriving, riding, and then leaving. Because for me, yes, I agree with you, the connection is extremely important. And I think the more you know a horse, the more you can get out of a horse. And it's so much more rewarding when you know that you've been through the journey the whole way, in terms of going through the hard days, the good days, and then coming out the other side. Whereas I don't know that it can mean as much to you, or it can be as rewarding if you just arrive, ride, leave.
And let's just talk about that for a second, because this story that we're about to unveil with yourself is absolutely remarkable. Now, if I'm right in saying, it was about 2004, some 20 years ago, when Mum was wanting to maybe think about putting a sport horse stud together, with the aims of producing horses for the betterment of both Australian and, as it turns out, international riders. And talking to Mum, she seems to have this absolute affinity with not only the horse itself, but the end product. In other words, that if a horse doesn't meet a particular requirement at Grand Prix level, because obviously that would be the aim from any sport horse breeder, then the horse from her stud would necessarily fit in another area where the horse is always going to be first and foremost, and that you are going to have some really excellent outcome for the horse that was bred. And hold that thought for a second, because then we talk about Milky Way, because Milky Way, I think by Clearway, out of a Jalisco B mare, so a bit of Cell Francais blood on the mare side. And Mum points to the fact that Milky Way wasn't always the easiest horse in the world, quite quirky, quite sensitive. And I'm wondering if all this ties into the fact, from your background being with horses in childhood. But then let's go to this mare, and this is the massive story of all, a foal bred by the family. Incredible. Brought up by, broken by yourself. I think Amanda Madigan had a few rides on the mare in the early days, and as a 4 or 5-year-old, and I believe the mare was sent to Europe to you as a 7-year-old. To be picked on an Olympic squad is one thing. To be picked on an Olympic squad on a horse you've known since a foal, that's next level. That's incredible. So I'm wondering, from that country girl on those dusty paddocks to the heights and the pinnacle of our sport in Paris, how do you unpack that?
So as a foal already, she just had so much self-confidence, character. There was nothing she wouldn't give a go, and she had obviously ability to match that as well when we free jumped her, and she just loved it. And those are all attributes, even in people, that I admire so much, and in horses. And to see that in a foal that we had bred, or that Mum had bred, I wanted very much to ask Mum that we could keep her, and thankfully and luckily she was happy to do so. And I think, again, to your point, there were so many things that she had, so many qualities that she had that helped me at the time personally, and we just have grown together and got to know and love each other, and helped each other along the way. And thankfully then, through the journey, she's taken me to places that I could only have ever dreamed of going, and achieving successes in classes that, I would never have imagined doing. So like you said, she was very sensitive as a young horse. I still remember having help from Todd breaking her in, and you could do everything with her except put the bridle just over the ears. You could get the bit in, no problem. As soon as you'd go near the ears, head straight up. So we spent a long time. Helen Chug said to me, get a towel, put the bridle in the towel, and go on over and over and over. And we did that for a long time. And then now she is absolutely fine, obviously. But also you could pat her down all over. You could do everything on the lunge. As soon as you would put your foot in the stirrup, she was off. So little things like that took a long time to just settle her. She has a lot of blood. She's like a racehorse, so that took a long time. But no, it's definitely been worth it. She's taught me a lot as a person, and I'm extremely grateful and lucky to have her. Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, it's heartwarming for me as a horse lover through and through, and to have a foal, to work with the foal in those early days, and the quirkiness. What is she, 17 now? Is she 17? How old
She'll be 17.
17. To have her all this time, but as I say, you haven't qualified for the A grade at Moree Pony Club, notwithstanding the fact that would be an achievement for many people. But you get my. This is the Olympic Games. Goodness me, this is where the world comes to watch. This is the pinnacle. I still believe it is of our sport. And this foal that you witnessed and asked Mum to keep all that time ago, 17 years ago, is now about to represent Australia at the Palace of Versailles. It's quite an incredible story. Of course, it's not your first championships. You went to the Worlds in 2022, which was at Herning in Denmark. So consequently, how do you think, because people talk about championships, well, there was one and now you're going into another. Is there something perhaps that you learned at the Worlds that you will be putting in play at the Olympic Games?
Yeah, I think I underestimated how much energy and blood that she still has, even when it's at that level. I really thought that it would take more out of her. Everyone was warning me, it's the Olympic Games, or it's the world. No, at that stage it was the World Championships. There's a lot of jumping. There's big jumping. It was hot up there. And okay, she's always had a ton of energy, but I was really warned to, make sure that you keep her in really good shape and have her very fit. And in actual fact, she had too much energy. And so day 2, she was still back to her sort of motoring self. And so actually I could have had her more the other way, a little bit more tired, because she's always better when she's more tired. She's better when she travels a really long distance to a competition, so that she a little bit not worn out. I won't say worn out, because she never gets worn out. When she gets there and she's a little bit, because then you can ride her. Whereas if it's just up the road and she hasn't had to to work at all to get there,
Yes.
then she's feeling a little bit too much
Yes.
energy. And I so that for me was a huge lesson. Day one she was great, but then she also sometimes learns to know the arena and gets very excited. So I need to keep that in mind here and make sure that she sticks to her usual work schedule and don't ease off her too much in terms of letting her be too fresh or keeping her too energetic, because that did let me down day two in the World Championships. And also obviously my own nerves and inexperience at that highest level on day two probably let me down as well. So I'm hoping that I've learnt from that a little bit, and we've definitely we know each other even better now, I
Yeah.
would say. And the older she's getting, the smarter she's getting as well. So hopefully that stands us in better stead this time.
Well, again, though, if we only just look at last week's performances at Aachen, 5-star, your mother says it is undoubtedly the best horse event in the world, the atmosphere, the tradition, and so on. But I believe we were so we qualified. You qualified with Milky for the Grand Prix, elected not to start. But so I've got my facts right there. You had a good Aachen. You could have got into the Grand Prix, but I think the preparation going into Paris was ideal, wasn't it?
I'm really happy with how she's feeling. She's in great shape. She jumped incredibly well on Wednesday, and in the Friday class, okay, we just didn't get what I wanted up a particular line,
Yeah.
and I had bell boots on her for the first time because she just overreached a little bit on the in the Wednesday class. So
Yes.
I had to try something different, and she just didn't feel herself in the Friday class. So that class didn't go to plan, but I'm happy with the decision I made not to start in the Grand Prix, because it's not a class that you just go, oh, we'll just go and do the one round of the Grand Prix. If she jumps clear or even a fast 4 faults, you still have another round and potentially another round after that.
Yeah.
So knowing I had Paris in a few weeks' time, yes, I was just talking about keeping her not too fresh, but it's also a lot of big jumping in Aachen. Every day is like a Grand Prix. And she'd already had almost 2 Grand Prix by the time we got to the end of Friday. So that was enough for her. And she'll now do a small competition, just like 1 meter 40, the week before we go to Paris. And that's enough, because if you then go with the Grand Prix with Aachen, you have to be in it to want to really have a
Yes.
go. And yeah, after the decision on Friday, then I decided, no, I save her for Paris. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if anyone knows their horse, Hilary, you do. And having had a lifetime together, I'm interested. Years ago, we did have an Australian team coach, which we no longer really have. We've got certainly capable Stephen Lamb as our chef. But I'm curious, did you have anyone on the ground with in Aachen, and will you have somebody in your corner, coaching wise, in Paris?
I've had a lot to do with Dennis Lynch for
Mm.
quite a long time.
Yep.
Probably since about 2019, early 2019. He and I have been working quite a bit together. We did a lot during COVID, and then more so in the recent years. He's so busy with shows, as am I. So we do a lot sort of via video and just have conversations,
Yeah.
more as a mentor probably now than anything. But of course, he's at Aachen, so he helps me when we walk the course and we chat about it and go through the plan. So, and he will also be in Paris. So I'm extremely grateful and lucky to have someone of that caliber, and who we sort of we have a really healthy respect for each other and can talk about all the different options. So it's yeah.
2 perfectionists together, a little birdie told me.
Yeah, he's attention to detail is second to none, and I think that's why I get along with him so well, because I'm always looking at every little thing. So yeah.
No, it's all tracking in the right direction, but again, it is an absolute fairy tale. I can't wrap up though without just touching on your early days and early childhood, because it's a fascinating story of a young lady who has overcome adversity, who has and it becomes more incredible when that particular young lady has attained Olympic selection on a horse that her mother bred. But it's true to say, without dwelling too much on things, that early childhood, I think it was like day 4 after being born, there was complications with necessarily men airlifted in helicopters to various hospitals when you were a child, and that was a number of years of that sort of scenario. Thankfully, look at you now, you're looking at a picture of health. But I think it's true to say, to really understand the full picture of Hilary Scott, that life hasn't always been easy, and there has been this time of overcoming medical issues that clearly you have done. Has that shaped you, do you feel, as an individual, as a human being going forward? Has that molded your attitude?
Oh, no doubt. Absolutely. Because as you say, I wouldn't be here today had I been able to somehow get through all of that. And like you said, I mean, it was very, very early on and went on for quite a few years as a child. But the issues that I still have today. And so daily management is still a thing. And so, I mean, everyone has things that they're up against and working through. And I think it's definitely shaped who I am, because having to, in so many ways, I mean, and touching on the Milky thing, thanks to her, she's also kept me going to a certain extent, because giving me confidence in areas that I didn't have confidence, and learning to believe in myself because she had that belief in herself. There are so many things I could talk about in that regard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was having something that I really believed in as a passion that kept me going when times were really, really hard. And for me, that's why the horses do mean so much and why they are so special, because without that driving passion, yeah, there are many times that I thought, oh, I don't know whether I will make it. And for me, that's the most important thing in life, is if you can find something that really lights your fire, and something that yeah, that you're just undyingly passionate about.
Yeah.
It will keep you going. And there has been a lot of pretty testing times, and luckily I've got, like you said, I've got a very loving family, and they've always supported me getting through any of the hard times, and great friends. But it's definitely shaped who I am today, and given me, I guess, the grit and the determination not to give up, because that was never an option. Yeah.
Inspiring words, and I'm sure, as has been the role often of Edwina Tops Alexander, to inspire a nation, to inspire a younger generation. I feel you do that too, Hilary. I feel that when people get to know your story and see what you have overcome, and how you've never looked back, you always look forward. Sister Georgia and your nephew and nieces are coming to watch you, mum and dad, and even Miss Gerhard, who foaled down Milky, who's worked for the stud for 20 years. He's also coming to support you. But I also think, knowing rural communities as I do, and I am aware that in those early days when life was tough and mum and dad had to go with you to hospital, a number of jobs got done by the local community on farm. And I just think, I'm thinking of those dusty paddocks when you come into that ring. I think there's going to be a few tears about the young lady that they all supported. That's not the intention. But I just think that there's a lot of support behind you from country New South Wales, from Moree. And I think your journey means a lot to a lot of people. Yes, of course, it means so much to yourself, but I think a lot of people have come along the way, haven't they?
No, absolutely. I mean, like they say, it takes a village, but that's not the case. It takes so much more than a village. And absolutely, our family was the epitome of reaping the rewards of such a generous, heartwarming community when I was a child. Like you said, like, people would just step in left, right, and center. And I feel like we grew up with probably about 6 families, because we all have to go between all of mum and dad's really good family friends while we were growing up for different, you know, one person in Sydney, one person in Moree, one person in Brisbane. Like there'd be people in all different locations, and people would just help out all the time. And that generosity and that graciousness is such a, like you say, they are the epitomes of country communities. And so there are so many people that I owe so much to, and I'm so grateful for getting us, keeping me alive, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, terrific. You'll have me crying in a minute. But I mean, look, and that's not a facetious comment, because it is emotion, Hilary. It is the Olympic Games, for goodness sake. And here we have the story of a remarkable young Australian, newly married as well in the last couple of years. So that's an exciting addition to your family going forward. Of course, we do have a Brisbane 2032 Olympic Games. I'm not getting ahead of ourselves, but I wonder if where I'm going with that is there's a 360-degree full circle that could be potentially happening down the track. So, yeah, look, everybody now looking towards following you in Paris. I'm sure I speak from everybody at Australian Jumping and the show jumping public as a whole here in Australia. We admire what you've done as an individual. The family, we love everything that Mum's done and Georgia has done. And now all that remains is to wish you and Milky all the very best of luck in Paris. I know you'll be giving it your very best. One final word for the Australian public?
Just thank you for all the support, the messages, and the encouragement, and the overall support has just been incredible. And thank you very much to everyone. And we're all very excited to hopefully do Australia proud.
I'm sure you will. Hilary Scott, newly announced on the Australian show jumping team for the Olympics, and her brilliant mount, the lovely mare Milky Way. From myself, Martin Gostelow, and everybody at Australian Jumping, we look forward to following Hilary Scott and Milky Way at the Paris Olympics 2024.